Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nishant, and welcome to another episode of the Nishant Garg Show. The mission of the show is to spread awareness on mindfulness practices, psychology, mental health, and spirituality. My job on the show is to invite world class performers to share the practices to live a fulfilled life. Today's guest is Margy. Margy is the co owner of Interview Connections, the first and leading podcast booking agency. Margy and her business partner, Jessica, lead an in-house staff of 18 employees in their Rhode Island office and have successfully scaled the agency to 7 figures. Margy is active in animal rescue and organizes a yearly fundraiser called Art for Animals. In 2019, she was recognized for her efforts with the Humane Heroes Award. This is a slightly new podcast format I'm attempting for super busy people. I sent a few questions to Margy and she then recorded the answers. Some of the questions are: what's your morning routine look like? Why having a morning routine is essential in your life? What do you do when you feel overwhelmed? To know more, keep listening.
My morning routine is that I wake up, I exercise first thing in the morning, which is really helpful. And then after I take a shower, I do about a 15-minute meditation. I use an app called Insight Timer because I like to do guided meditations. I find it's harder for me to focus just being quiet or just focusing on my breath. So having the guided meditations really helps me. Having a morning routine is essential in my life because if I were to just get up and open my computer and start working and responding to emails and leading the team, I really wouldn't be coming from the right place. I wouldn't be in the right headspace. That time to work on myself and exercise and meditate, it really helps me get ahead of it so that I am controlling my energy when I go into the day, rather than being sort of at the mercy of everything that happens throughout the day. I'm kind of setting the tone myself instead of reacting, which is so important. When I feel overwhelmed, I generally will meditate. I find that's really helpful. When I was a door-to-door canvasser, I was fundraising where I met my current business partner. And I would find that sometimes I would be knocking on doors, and we were out there for 4 hours, 5 hours, knocking on doors and asking for people to write us a check and sign their name and give their information. So as you can imagine, that can be sort of challenging. You're knocking on their door during dinner. And some nights as a canvasser, I would find that I was just getting a lot of no's. And if it was halfway through my night or my night was almost over and I still had $0, I had no donations, I would start to feel really overwhelmed and really sort of panicky. And what I found worked was, instead of speeding up when I feel myself getting overwhelmed, because if I speed up and I just start going to more doors, but I'm bringing that overwhelmed energy, people picked up on it and they didn't respond well to it. And it didn't attract good things or yeses. What I found did work when I was feeling overwhelmed was to stop, sit down on the curb, take some deep breaths. And once I got really present, then I would start focusing on all the things I've done that worked out really well. So with canvassing, I would think about the biggest donations I ever got and the nicest people I met. And I found that if I spent a few minutes doing that, I was able to totally shift my energy and then stand up, go to the next door, and I would always turn it around and start getting donations. So I think the biggest thing when you're starting to get overwhelmed is not to keep the momentum going really fast, because momentum is a good thing. But if you have a lot of momentum with a negative feeling like overwhelm, it can be really destructive. So sometimes it's better to just stop and recenter and then keep going. And I think that's the best way to deal with overwhelm and will help you not perpetuate that negativity and overwhelm, because if you're feeling really frazzled and crazed and stressed, everything you do is going to be ineffective. What makes me happy and fulfilled in life, number one is The Mother Teresa quote, "Find someone who believes he is alone and convince him that he's not," is my favorite quote. That is why I'm so passionate about going on podcasts and sharing my story, and why I'm so passionate about other people doing the same, because it is so powerful to be brave enough to really share not just your wins, but also your losses. And it helps people see themselves. And if they're in a bad place, to hear that and to hear you on the other side could be what makes the difference in them feeling better and getting up and keep going. And that really, I think, is one of the most fulfilling things that any of us could experience. Another thing I find fulfilling is I'm passionate about animal rescue. So I make sure that that's a part of my life. I make sure I am actively fundraising, that I'm volunteering, because I know if I stop doing those things, I'll lose that fulfillment. And even if I'm successful in my business and making money, I'll always feel something missing if I'm not tapping into that cause. The way I deal with setbacks and failures, first of all, I think it's really important to accept how you feel. Positivity is really important, but if you have a big setback or failure, and if you're playing a big game and you're growing really fast, you should be failing all the time, especially as an entrepreneur. And if you have a failure that's a real big one that just really knocks you down, I think the first thing is to really be present with it. Like, acknowledge that hurt. Because if you push through, like, okay, everything's fine, nothing happened, and you don't acknowledge how much that one hurt, it's hard to get it complete and then create something new. So I think really accepting when we get hit with a failure that really hurts, not being afraid to accept that hurt, feel whatever feelings go along with that, express whatever feelings you need to, get the support you need, and then make a plan and move on. So you don't want to dwell forever, but you do want to take a little bit of time to just get it complete and honor those feelings, and then pick yourself back up and keep going. The relationship I have with myself, that's a really interesting question. So I feel like when I was younger, I was more focused on like self-love and having a good relationship with myself and like finding myself. And the older I get, the more I don't feel like I do have a relationship with myself. And I don't feel like you can find yourself. I feel like the self isn't real. I think whoever you are being at that moment is who you are. It's your like quote unquote self. And I don't think it's set in stone at all. And I think that's a really amazing thing, because it means that no matter what we've done or who we've been in the past, every second we can be anything we want just on how we're being and how we're acting. So I don't think I have a relationship with myself, because I don't think I have a solid sense of self. There's really just how I'm showing up and who I'm being every day. And that's constantly changing.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode today. I hope you learned from this episode that you can apply in your life. If you did enjoy this, please subscribe to the podcast, The Nishant Garg Show, on Apple Podcast. You can also subscribe to the show through my website, https://nishantgarg.me, NISHANTGARG.me. You can also share this podcast with your family and friends or whoever want to feel fulfilled. And thank you so much again.